we played was I guess 2 weeks ago
Yep.
when you guys fought and defeated the king slash Baron Hargreaves in his sort of mutated, transformed form. He you guys got up the stairs in enough time. It disrupted the ritual that was being performed on him, and it seems like after a little bit of a study and intuition on Elrich's part, the ritual was sort of draining some of the life essence from the queen and using that to fuel the king's or the baron's transformation, and it was interrupted enough that the transformation wasn't complete or needed more time to be completed. Either way, the baron, the king, didn't put up too much of a fight. He did, but you guys handled him.
I think Boar would disagree.
Let's say you handled him adequately. Yeah, Boar took a bit of a smackdown. Mopey got beat around a little bit too, but you guys handled him.
Listen to her. I'm good. 5, 1 hit point.
Yeah, hey, you survived.
Exactly.
I say, and look, 1 hit point is as good as 100. You're still standing. You're still swinging your weapon. That's all that matters. So, as the baron's his transformation had temporarily reverted, and as you finished him off in his mere human form, the skies, the sort of swirling, sickly purplish clouds that were circling above Castle Hargreaves, broke up. The night slowly returned back to normal, just as the sun began creeping over the horizon, shedding daylight on Briarwood for the first time in probably 500, maybe 600-700 years without a Hargreaves sitting on the regional throne. And now there's an obvious sort of vacuum in the local power structure. The king of Callandry, the actual king, is en route with his army. Good news is when he arrives, there is no need now for a protracted siege, unless you guys want to claim the castle for yourself.
Be afraid.
We would definitely take the king and his army. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
I just know if I've got the energy for that this week.
It's a lot. It is a lot. And there's only 6 of you. You can only do so much.
I have a whole deck of illusions. I can fuck some shit up.
This is true. I would imagine that.
I'd rather have the king on our side than against us right now. It might be better to try and get some gold out of him than blood,
No, I'm all for saving the queen and being the big hero.
Yeah, I think I don't want to assume that's going to be the course of action, but that's the prudent course of action.
The paladin says yes.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. Yeah, so you don't know exactly how far out the king is with his army, but you would imagine, the news that the things were going south in Briarwood, and that the queen was, or the rumors that the queen had been taken captive, are at this point maybe about 2 months old. So, uh, you know, uh, it takes time to mobilize a fighting force and march overland, but you would expect the king and his army would be here sooner rather than later. So, but as things stand now, there is no one running Briarwood. Um, uh, that's not necessarily a problem that needs to be resolved like right this very moment. But it is something that you're in the course of doing the right and the just thing. There is now a power vacuum that's going to have to be filled. The people are going to operate. The people of Greaves Edge, the people of Briarwood at large, of Oscar's Rest, they're going to continue living their lives, but Briarwood is going to have to be returned to the fold in Callandry, and someone is going to have to be the regional governor of this area. So, maybe that's a problem for the king when he arrives, or maybe that's something that the sort of lesser powers of the area can work out for themselves before the king gets here. But that is something that's going to come down the road. So with the sun coming up over the horizon, you guys now having done the heroic thing, having saved the queen, having for the second time now in about 500 years, having heroes having to put a stop to the predations and occult influence of the baron of the Hargreaves family. What does your little cadre of heroes do as the sun is coming up? The most of the troops here in the castle that they fled once they saw the way things were going. Some fought to the very end, but the ones that are left, or the ones that are trickling back in, are the ones that didn't resist you in any way, or saw the wisdom in retreating and not putting up a fight. So the cultists seem to have been cleared out, but there are some guards left who seem, at least on the outside, to be willing to work with you, if not for you. So what do you guys do?
I'm going to do some looting.
Yeah. Let's loot the cultists. Let's loot the baron. He was never king. He was
loot the castle. I mean, I'm gonna. I mean, I don't know if our paladin or anybody else is going to be involved in this, but yeah, I'm not leaving empty-handed.
We also have to go back and check on the queen, and I have to find out what the stupid thing I looted from Hammond's was.
Right, yeah. That's going to take some time.
That's not anything we need to do like during dawn, but I think we check the baron to see what fancy loot he has.
Mm-hmm.
And anything we might need a proof of death for the king, just to make sure that,
See if he has a key to a vault on him.
Sorry?
See if he has a key to the vault.
Yeah, I say we loot, see what's on his possessions. We also have to make sure that any of the cultists know that they're not welcome nearby anymore. And if we see any of them, I think I want to make an example of them by mounting them on stakes. in pieces, preferably.
Okay.
Is that a little bit too vengeance-y for St. Herbert?
It's a little dark.
With...
it's too dark for me, my character. But you go around. You go for it.
Well, I don't want to piss off St. Herbert because he did grant me an extra 1 point to protection. So.
Well, I mean, like I said, the cultists seem to have been eliminated. They've been routed and dispatched. So and frankly, any that are unless you want to go like scouring across the island, any that may have escaped and fled, they'd be fools to try and come back to the castle, and they would know that. Of bigger concern is that Zarek, the high priest, is still is on the loose. He escaped. You don't know where he escaped to, but he sort of zapped out of there using magic. Now, in terms of like picking over bodies and stuff, the cultists don't have much. That seems to be kind of like their sort of modus operandi, is that like earthly possessions are sort of unnecessary once they transform and their body is changed into their next form. They don't have a need for coin or possessions. So really, of their belongings, you can kind of just find like ratty robes and little like religious iconography, like trinkets or little symbols of Pazuzu that you may or may not want to keep. Frankly, you probably better served by lighting a bonfire in the courtyard and tossing all that stuff in there. But
the paladin was thinking of, because he's assuming Zarek's main chambers would be somewhere in this tower or keep, that he would like to set the whole thing on fire almost. He'd be a little more polite, but he'd like to find the room and burn it.
Well, yeah. So I understand the motivation there. And yes, Zarek does have, you can kind of quickly find the room that had been his in the castle. It's, and strangely, it's pretty finely decorated, and he's got this big like 4-post, or 4-masted bed, with these silk sheets and these scattered around the room are sort of holy symbols of different faiths that have been somewhat desecrated, but like they're made of gold and silver and like jade and these sort of rare minerals and rare elements that kind of belie a sense of wealth that maybe he was depriving his followers of.
Shocking.
Yeah, right. But you really, there's some like correspondence with the letters he received from other cultists that were sort of further afield as they're checking in with him. Correspondence from the goblin tribe that he was using. There's really
find out why he wanted the golden apple.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, as you
we never did figure that out.
Yeah, as you go back, as you leaf back through his journals and his correspondence, it looks like the ritual to transform the Baron had had he been able to get his hands on the Oscar Firebeard's sword, had he been able to get this golden apple, and had it looks like there was something in the temple, the old the temple of Pazuzu that his he sent his cultists to look for. You kind of think now what he really needed was something that the Baron's ghost was using in his chamber. So he kind of sent his followers on a wild goose chase. But had he been able to get these three things, the sword, the golden apple, and the clues seem to point towards the Baron's old robes. Had he been able to get those three things, the ritual would have been further empowered, and either the Baron's transformation, he would have been transformed into something even more powerful, or it would not have been perhaps even it may not have been interruptible. It may have been something that would have happened much faster, much more powerful, and left you with with a much more dangerous foe to contend with. So it seems as if you've been maybe disrupting this ritual in drips and drabs for since this whole mess started. So you're not sure exactly what the nature of the golden apple is, other than it seems to be one of the ingredients for the ritual was like the most rare product of the land, and it seems as if like this was just some sort of magical confluence of events that he was able to divine that this thing would be available, and figured it was something simple enough that these goblins who had he had been working with him, that he could trust it to them, and clearly it was not. So, but it's now it's an apple of gold. It's got some material value, but in terms of this ritual, unless you guys wanted to try and pull off this ritual and transform someone, in terms of like magical or sort of powerful wealth or value, it really doesn't have any.
Josh, because I'm in the room with Pazuzu's high priest, so I think I was going to lay on hands in case and then do divine sense and see if I can find anything evil that needs to be destroyed. We can, because he's not here, and if there's like an evil artifact I can destroy and weaken him, he can't come back for, all the better.
Yeah, he's for better or for worse, he seems to be a completely mortal entity. Like he's just a guy who's got some magical power, some divine investiture. So you really wouldn't have a means to like banish him from returning.
Nothing. That's not it, but I was just looking for any objects that he might have consecrated with evil.
It actually seems like this is a fairly like normal room, other than like his collection of holy symbols that he's sort of desecrated and like marred. And they sort of run the gamut of faiths. There's some that you think are dwarven. Some represent a number of different human of the human pantheon. One of Luna, the one of the elven goddesses. There's sort of like this small little collection of holy symbols that he's sort of taken the time to mar or disfigure in some manner, almost like spitefully. But there's nothing in the chamber that like it's not like there's this altar to Pazuzu in the chamber or anything like that. There is an altar to Pazuzu in another room that the cultists were using in the castle, but not in Zarek's chambers.
And I think my only thing was, I think the Baron had an altar in his bedroom.
He did, yes.
I had promised I was going to get to destroy later.
Yeah.
And that and rescue and make sure the Queen gets to safety was the only other things I was planning on doing.
We should probably round up our member of the chapter that got kidnapped and the other person that we were rescuing from the cult.
Yeah, there was a young girl and a initiate of the Order of Saint Herbert.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, and the Queen. So those three, they were all. You all sort of had. You laid the Queen on the bed in the Baron's room, but the other two were sort of in the tunnel that led out towards the Smuggler's Cove. Yeah, you can. I don't know if you want to get. You want to head back to the mainland or not, or if you want to stay here. But you can certainly round. I mean, it's safe. You can certainly gather them up, and get them magical attention, or even if it's just like getting them into beds and letting them rest and get some food into them, whatever. But you can certainly do that easily enough. It's safe to do that.
So, question: our illicit ride to the island, has it vanished on it? Have we passed the 4-hour mark?
You are coming up on it. You would need.
Do we want to just let them bail out and not take us back and keep half the coin that we would give them, or because I'm sure there's another way back. The soldiers and stuff probably could get us to the main ferry that goes back between the mainland. And
yeah.
I kind of feel like I want to pay these guys anyways because they might be useful in the future.
Okay.
And I don't want to have that bad reputation with these kind of people.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be in the area for any length of time, you're probably better off being on their good side than their bad side. So that's prudent. That's
why I was asking, because I don't want them to think that we.
Well, don't worry, we'll pay them off with stuff that we steal out of the castle.
Just don't let me see it, okay? All good.
Hey, Boar, look over there.
Oh, look at that, huh? That's a beautiful suit of armor.
So sifting through. So yeah, you bust into, or yeah, you bust into. You find the key. You find the key to the. There's a vault beneath the castle. Where it looks like the Baron was collecting and storing the taxes before sending it off to the capital, and knowing that he had stepped up, had his tax collector do a second round of tax collection, and had declared independence. You would expect that there would be maybe some, significant coffers of coin. It looks like, from the amount of mercenaries that were pouring into into Greaves Edge, the amount of guards that he had on staff, the amount of food and drink he would have to procure for the cultists that he had given safe haven to. When you get into the vault, it is not barren, but not not filled with the amount of coin you would have expected to be there, or other material wealth. It looks as if basically there's a bunch of chests and barrels that probably at one point held more valuables. Quick inventory of what's in that. There might be maybe 600 coins total, gold, silver, and copper, and very little else in the vault. He was really relying on his transformation probably giving him power, and at least gaining him allegiance through fear, if nothing else, that maybe he could get away without having a lot of coin for the short term. But if you want to loot it, I can tell you exactly what you got. But it's really kind of disappointing.
Well, disappointing or not, it's hero tax.
All right. Well, you have you find 197 gold pieces, 169 copper, and 194 silver.
God damn it! We owe like 200 gold still, so we pretty much just scratched that off.
Yeah.
All right. I feel like there's got to be something that I can walk away with in this castle.
There's bound to be some gems or something somewhere. We got to be able to there's got to be something valuable. Like he's got to have
crown.
Shit, sorry.
Like a nice sword or something.
I have it up on the TV too, John. I just saw. Mostly because I have Patrick Mahomes on my fantasy team. So valuables. Yeah, I mean, those holy symbols, that collection of like gold and silver holy symbols are gonna have value to somebody. Oh, he didn't catch that ball. I mean, unless you want to start like ripping tapestries off the walls, but even that's not going to. I mean, you're going to have to find a buyer. That's not going to provide you immediate wealth.
Yeah, that's no good. That's a little more skeevy than I want to be.
We want easy returns.
Taxes from peasants.
That I'm okay with.
What if we just keep the castle?
We can't. They're not going to let us keep the castle.
Well, we could keep the castle at least until the king gets there, just to make sure that it's intact. Give the queen somewhere to recover.
Nah, I want to go back to the town so I can get drunk.
That's true. There's good beer in the. There's good beer near the chapter.
I don't want to hang out with these soldiers where I massacred half their friends.
Yeah.
Hey, we did offer them a way out, and when they took it, we left them alone. So we were quite nice to them.
Yeah, it was only their bosses, which they probably hated, that stood their ground. Everyone else ran. So.
What are you gonna do with the queen?
Well, I'm not gonna ransom her.
Well, I mean,
we need to let the queen recover because she has been drained.
Well, what does the queen want to do? Maybe we should talk to her.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking her, she's still, a little on the weak side. She kind of looks like someone who's on the mending side of a protracted illness. You can see she's kind of like on the way, on the way back up, but still kind of has that look of someone that just went through something very, very draining, very physically taxing, and but she's of the mind that this is a castle. She is the only noble in the region that she knows of.
No. I'm of noble birth. Don't slight me here.
That she knows.
That she knows of.
Yet.
I would. When she heals up, I introduce myself to her. There.
She
outranks me.
She in her mind, these soldiers had the good sense to not put up a fight. The ones that are left, that is, and if they're willing to, sort of swear allegiance and fealty to her, she is comfortable staying in the castle. You guys are certainly the most capable and most reliable sellswords in the area. You rescued her. You took care of the Baron. There's at least she can at least trust you far enough in that if you're willing to help her hold the castle, she and these soldiers are willing to sort of swear to the crown. She thinks keeping the castle staffed is probably the best way to go until the king arrives.
All right, I'm willing to do that, but we gotta look for wine or something. I'm not gonna be sober and not party and do all this. We need to celebrate.
Well, the good news for you guys is that you guys didn't go into the kitchens or down to the food and wine cellar beneath the castle. So when you find that, yeah, there's actually quite an extensive wine collection with a number of elven vintages, some that seem to be procured from really rather far and wide. If nothing else, some of these vintages will have value to the right individual. So you might be able to turn a profit if you can find someone that's willing to buy some of this wine, or you can just drink it yourselves. The good news is the larder seems to be well stocked, so there is food and drink for your sort of recovering captives that you've rescued.
Is there still domestic staff to do?
Well, yeah, it takes a day or so for them to return to the castle. There are, this island is sort of dotted with sort of homesteads here and there where it looks like the domestic staff would retreat to when they were off when they were off duty or given leave to return to their families. Some of them sort of take a day or two to trickle back in and see exactly what happened. They don't seem particularly upset that things have shaken out the way they have. Most of them, are happy to return to work, especially under the assumption that if they are serving the queen, they will be compensated when the king arrives. They're sort of happy to trickle in, return to work, and go about the business side of running a castle.
All right, let's party up.
So yeah, you got those coins. You got well, let's see how many wine bottles you got.
Maybe we could pay in wine rather than a coin.
You find
Drink the wine.
so there are 31 different wine bottles, from really kind of all over. If it would take someone that really knows about wine, to be able to tell you the value, if there is any significant value. But it seems like the names on that are stamped on some of these bottles, they hail from across the ocean. Some are from the Elven lands to the west. There are a number of sort of far flung vintages. So it stands to reason that there might be some value to them, but you really can't tell what unless you can find someone who really knows what they're looking at.
I kind of feel like after a few days, if we're here for more than like 3 days, we're gonna drink all that.
Well, what we can do is we could get a message to the chapter and have them send over some barrels of their finest so that we can keep the wine.
Well, that is an option. Another option, if you don't trust these these soldiers that remain, and if you wanted to put a little faith into the Order of Saint Herbert, there are enough of priests and such in the chapter house that some of them could come over and provide some extra sort of trustworthy arms here at the castle. It would certainly create a bit of a frat house environment, but
that would be an excellent idea, because I don't trust any of these soldiers. I mean, they've already proven to be traitors.
Yeah, I think it would be good to have some trustworthy folks that we know that we're not corrupted, or maybe thinking of doing of maybe trying to make coin in a different way. We know that there's some illegitimate business happening with people with backdoor keys. We also want to excuse me, that was rude. We might want to get somebody to barricade the back entrance so that people just can't come in the dead of night when we are, we want to make sure that anybody using that back gate.
We might need to use that again someday.
Well, if we know which lock it's using, we have a key.
Well, yeah, but there's no reason to seal it up, especially if we don't know who's actually going to be living in this castle.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say there is, sometimes a ruler needs a way to get people in and out of a castle without going through the front gate. So, I mean, certainly the Baron was using it for actively evil purposes, moving prisoners in and out and stuff. But, you may need to get, whoever takes this castle over may need to be able to get dignitaries in and out, without, it being obvious.
Or they just might need to escape at some point.
Right, or they could use it for their own purposes. To hey, I'm getting out of here. I'm slipping out, and I need to avoid my own guards in order to do it. So that would be a decision, I think, for whoever ends up in charge of the castle next. I mean, I would certainly make them aware of it if they're not already, that it exists. And let them decide what they want to do with that.
Okay, so first things first, we're gonna have to let the smugglers know that we're still alive and that we are honorable.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, we can divide up. We can go check on the Queen, let her know that she is now in charge.
Okay.
And thirdly, get some drink and some food and some sleep.
Yeah. Okay. So
and then what we do is we can start sending messages. We can find.
Yep.
One of the soldiers seemed to be like, "Hey, I'm going to listen to you guys." Maybe he's cognizant enough to go send a message to the chapter house and get some of the brotherhood over here, so that we can bolster the numbers and get some more food and drink and stuff, so that we don't have to waste the fancy wine.
Well, yeah, there is a there is a main dock on the island where the ferry goes in and out. With the amount of soldiers flooding into Greaves Edge, the ferry was, running a couple times a week. So there will be a boat, most likely. If you remember the schedule from when you were you guys caught the ride you did, so that you could not have to wait for the actual ferry, which would be arriving today. And actually, after the events of last night, surely somebody in Greaves Edge would have witnessed something happening out on the island. Somebody will be coming to investigate at some point. So you will certainly be able to get messages and messengers back and forth. For now, though, yeah, you can get the queen. Let her know that she's the ranking noble here. The castle and the staff are at her disposal. Boar, you can recruit some of your brothers and sisters in the faith to come and provide an extra arms and bodies here, other than these soldiers and troops that may or may not be trustworthy. They do all, to a man, take a knee and bow before the queen and pledge their renewed fealty and faith in the crown and the royal family of Callandry. And the queen, as she, in her, even in her weakened state, is sort of like the picture of dignity and leadership, as she graciously accepts their pledges as if they hadn't just a day or two before been her captors. However, she does appreciate that you guys sort of have an inside track on some additional men and women who might be a little more reliable and trustworthy. So she sort of graciously and gratefully signs off on getting some of the priests and paladins of St. Herbert out here. And it really by nightfall, there are a number of soldiers, men and women of the faith. They come equipped with barrels of ale, and foodstuffs, to just bolster your forces here in the castle. And they come with news that the king's forces have been spotted, just on the far side of Loch Hargreaves, and they should be here. Some of them, have already set sail from the eastern bank of the lake. The rest of them are going to be marching around the lake on the road. But you would expect, by morning tomorrow, if they sail the relatively calm lake overnight, somebody should be here by the morning. So the hopes are kind of high that this sort of awkward situation won't have to last too long.
Do we have a flag of Callandry that we can fly to show them that it's friendly?
Yeah, you can you find one in the storeroom, in the castle. That it's kind of been placed into storage. You pull it out and run it up the main post on the top of the castle, so that anyone who's approaching the island by daylight will be able to see that it's in the possession, or at least claiming to be possessed by your allegiance back to the king, or the crown. So that's actually not a bad plan at all. So that people are not just completely hyped up or hopped up when they set foot on the island.
Yeah, I know to send friendly signals when you're friendly, and suddenly not have trebuchets shooting shit at you.
Right. So within assuming that everybody's okay with that plan, shortly after about mid morning, a relatively common lake boat puts in at the main dock. It is flying, however, the banners of the king, and sure enough, the king and a handful of retainers and men at arms come marching through the main gates of the castle.
Would I recognize, or would any of them recognize me from being in the king's army recently?
So you recognize the king, as you likely would, but particularly because the king of Callandry, before he assumes the throne, while his father or mother is still the regent of the kingdom, the heir to be serves. In an officer's capacity, and frankly, they never really get close to any actual bloodshed. But parade ceremony and sort of official in his official capacity as the crown prince. You on more than one occasion were able to be on the same parade field as the now king, back when he was just the crown Prince Byron. You recognize him now. He is the king, but he would have no reason to pick you out of any lineup.
But if it was a quartermaster or somebody with him that I would have interacted with as a sergeant, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, his own son, he and the queen's adolescent son is riding with him. His and a handful of other retainers, but none of them that you have served with or that you recognize. And most of them, even though they're in military dress, they still bear like their own house, insignias. They're probably rather major nobles in their own right. So none of them that you really would have had any experience with.
Yeah, lowly sergeant like me has well removed from these dudes.
Right. You're doing the actual like grunt work, whereas they're in their tents, sending you off to die. So
the people that I would still know were probably days away from arriving.
Yeah, they're the ones marching along the south shore of the lake. They didn't get to sail from the eastern shore and arrive here in relative comfort. The queen greets her husband, obviously, is relieved, but she there's sort of a modest greeting ceremony in the throne room of the castle, where she receives her husband, hands over the control of the castle to him, but she makes a sort of big show of pointing you all out. Explains that while she doesn't know you well, you are her rescuers. You did liberate the castle. You brought an end to the Baron's treachery and his deceit, and the suffering he was inflicting on the king's subjects here in Briarwood. And the king kind of looks you all over with an appraising eye, and kind of rises to his full height as he takes off his helm and sits down on the throne of Briarwood, lays his sword across his lap, and he says to all of you, tell me, how is it that a band of sellswords and mercenaries find themselves putting an end to a traitorous baron and rescuing my lady wife?
Who wants to speak first?
We're great heroes. We're brought together by purpose and fate.
Since Herbert guided us. Is that what you're going to say?
Nah, I don't know anything about that guy.
I would say that.
Oh, sorry. I mixed
He guided us.
I was like,
And we saw the fact that the Baron aligned himself with pure evil. We had to, and the fact that he was rebelling against you, we knew he was definitely evil and not doing right. So we had to stop him from casting a dark shadow across the land.
What started out as a quick scuffle with some goblins led us on a hunt for people trying to revive Pazuzu in the area, which, interestingly enough, led us here to a cult ritual and your wife. It's what was supposed to be a quick couple of coin to pay for another night or two in the inn on the road. Has actually turned into a bit of an adventure.
I see. Well, I appreciate your thoroughness in seeing out your rather modest mission to its rather bizarre and lofty conclusion. Whether it was the gods or something more mundane that brought you here and led you to being the right men and women at the right time in the right place, I thank you, because you have saved the men and women of Briarwood and the men and women of my army from a battle, a protracted siege that would have left many more wounded, starving, orphaned, dead than the relative minor bloodshed that you had to perform here. So your actions belie a heroism and a a loyalty to the king and the crown that many others may not have shown. So I thank you on behalf of my wife and our son for your actions. He kind of addresses everyone now in the chamber and says, "So now we go about the business of returning Briarwood to Callandry. And how do we do this?" Some of his, courtiers and attendants pipe up, and they, are all, sort of bemoaning the fact that, had they been able to arrive sooner, perhaps they could have seen to the justice for the Baron and blah. They're all kind of positioning and jockeying for favor, and
I'm just sitting there thinking, bullshit. You guys couldn't have organized a piss up in a brewery if you were, I just stand there and I'm like, yeah, whatever. I would say that one thing to note, my lord, is that, or not really my lord, but your highness, is that we were around true servants, or true, yeah. What would be the word that I'm looking for? People that were appalled at the actions of the Baron, that were true loyal to the crown of Callandry. I think that you should recognize our friends at, our first little village that we're at. We're very annoyed at the Baron and his men declaring themselves a kingdom, and they treated us well, which is part of the reason why we stayed on the course to bring about. But there may be nobles among us that deserve recognition here, maybe from lines that are a little more forgotten, or a little, maybe renowned history. And I kind of am like trying to shove our descendant of Firebeard kind of forward without outing him too much. I don't know if it's going to work, but at least I'm hinting. Take the.
So I mean, yeah. As far as anyone knows, Firebeard's family sort of faded into history. And not that Firebeard was a noble, but he was just a kind of a warrior and a priest, and someone who sort of had to felt called to do the right thing. I mean,
that's ability.
Well, yeah, hey, frankly, that's more than can be said for a lot of people who have a name and a title. That said, Briarwood is kind of like on the fringe and the edge of Callandry. There aren't, this is a region that's not really crawling with people vying for, noble titles. So, an heir of Firebeard, someone who has a, family tie to the land, an ancestral tie to the land, can trace their lineage back to really the first hero of Briarwood, and contributed to, returning Briarwood to the kingdom, would be a more than suitable, replacement as Baron. But no one know. only you know that such a person exists, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Do you want to be the Baron? Or is that
well? That character's getting retired, right? That's a perfect NPC way to go out.
Yeah,
It's
that's kind of that's part of what I'm thinking. We could, at the kind of semi unwilling noble, but you would make a good Baron because there's no you're not corrupted by the power. You would be fair and we hope you'd be fair and reasonable, or would come and kick your ass.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. It sounds like you were getting ready to say
something. With Glenn not being so subtle and kind of essentially pushing me out in front of a king, I would bow as awkwardly as I could, because I'm a freaking woodsman, and I would say, Your Highness, he speaks of me and my family. I've no classical training, as many of your coterie will be quick to point out, but I have hunted this land. I have protected it from orc and man, and now demon and beast. I would gladly take on this great responsibility to ensure the safety of my home and my people. And I don't know what strength lies in my blood, but I was given this, and I would show him the little brooch that's on my holding my cloak closed. I would say that this was given to me and at birth, and it's said to have been the Firebeard's brand.
So, as you're kind of showing that forwards, the king looks over at one of his advisors and gestures him over to you, and this older gentleman walks over and pulls out a single, polished, carved disc of glass that he sort of polishes on his tunic and places in his eye and looks down at it and
take it off for it and hand it to it.
He inspects it, fairly closely, and he turns back to the king and he says, "My lord, not much is known of the Firebeard in the history. Not much is recorded in the history books, but having recently read up on the histories of this land in particular, this does seem to have been his. This man before us may very well be an heir of the Firebeard, and it is a family that is well respected and well loved in this region. Someone with ties to this land may not be a bad choice. And some of the other nobles in the room start this country bumpkin being elevated to the ranks of the barony and blah, 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 but the king seems open to the idea. He looks at his wife, and his wife just kind of the queen just nods, and he says, very well, Ionis, we will talk on this later. For now, though, your king is here. The castle is secure. Briarwood is welcomed back into the fold, and I will see that whoever sits on this throne next is someone who is loyal and a friend of the crown. Someone that can be trusted, and if the legacy of Firebeard is one is as heroic and as trustworthy as it sounds, this may yet be an acceptable choice. I will meet with my advisors. We will everyone that is in this room now will gather back here for for dinner, where we will discuss these matters further. And he dismisses everyone.
We've been invited to a royal dinner. That is well, we can't refuse the invitation.
No.
But it's going to be quite the party.
Yeah. So I mean, almost before you're even out of the room, like there are household servants who are they're carrying the table back in and setting chairs up, and they're already beginning to hang the king's livery from the walls, and so like they're basically already getting the room ready. You've got a few hours, but the king grabs the older gentleman that was identified as Ionis, and he and the queen and some of the other more high the more high ranking nobles retreat to elsewhere in the castle. I'm assuming by now you've sort of destroyed the altar to Pazuzu, and you've done all the things to make to sort of eliminate the presence of the cultists from the castle as much as you can.
Yep.
That's sort of still ongoing. There's still there's little corners of the castle that still need to be cleaned up. But the household servants are seeing to that.
I take it with the invitation of the chapter house over. We've set up a tap room where we can go and relax and have some brews before the dinner.
Yeah, there. So, it's kind of drab and dismal, but the what had been the dungeon beneath the castle is an out of the way sort of safe place to, and it's below ground, so it's a good place to store some barrels, and you can kind of reclaim it, sort of give it a better vibe than it had before. Certainly, as there are, as the priests and of St. Herbert have been moving in, they have gone about either removing or tucking or hiding away all like the instruments of torture that were used down there, and other than the iron gates on the doors clearly mark all the little alcoves as being cells. It's really doesn't bear any of the same obvious markings as a place of imprisonment and torture that it did when you first arrived. So that's not a bad place. You can kind of retreat to there and get yourself a mug and consider your fortune, good or bad.
Jokingly looking over and going, Baron.
Your Highness.
Your Honor, my lordship.
My lord, at bare minimum.
And driving you up the wall a little bit, making you like super embarrassed and awkward about the whole thing, and you glaring at me. I'm like, you had to do that, didn't you? I'm like, I'd rather have a friend in this castle than some hoity-toity, lowlife who doesn't know his ass from his elbow, and the land from his, the land from the water.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, you could do a lot worse than, sort of like the reluctant leader is a bit of a trope, but it's a good one. I think that someone who is sort of has the mantle of rulership thrust on them that doesn't necessarily crave it is probably better suited for it than someone who wants that power, wants that responsibility, wants that kind of wants to have people, wants to be placed above others. Someone who is sort of kind of resistant to that is probably better suited to lead others than someone who actively pursues it. So, Quill kind of has been a bit of a sort of reluctant, someone reluctant to steal the spotlight or take the spotlight all along. So probably not a bad choice. Doesn't hurt that that Quill has the lineage that he has. Though he does have a distant cousin elsewhere.
We could have a cider smith in here instead.
But yeah, so as the dinner hour approaches, and everybody begins to sort of reassemble. It's not a large table. It's big enough for the six of you. They've brought in another table, and that it looks as if the nobles are sort of spreading out between your table and this other table. The king comes in with his advisor Aeolus and his wife, and they both sit in the throne, on the dual thrones at the on the dais above you, and a table is placed in front of them, and food and drink is laid out on it. Aeolus comes and sits at your table, and the king asks Boar. He actually asks if since you played such a part in retaking the castle, obviously you're a man of faith, and someone who has sort of taken a proactive role in restoring the castle to a place of dignity instead of one corrupted by cultists. If you would not mind blessing the meal before everyone partakes.
Okay. Boar stands up very graciously, thanks Aeolus for the honor, and then basically, in his most holy, serene look he has, does this cross of St. Herbert, and then basically says, thank you for St. Herbert for bringing us here, saving us from the evil, and for blessing us with the presence of the king, who's restored this land and helped protect this land for all the had. Let us enjoy the fruits of our labor.
Okay. The king then says, a blessing befitting a warrior priest. Thank you for intoning your god's presence here, and everyone, food and drink, enjoy, take part, and we will attend to the matters at hand once we have all got food and drink in our bellies. And with that, he kind of tears the leg off of a chicken, and begins eating, and everyone else follows suit once the king and the queen have begun partaking.
You stalled, and the first thing that popped into my head was peasant, not turkey.
Goose. We need something really fatty and distinct, like a pheasant or a goose or some really decadent royal feeding.
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of out in the boonies here.
Duck? Roast duck?
Yeah, there are ducks on the lake. Sure, there can be some duck in there. Couple. Yeah, sure. There, couple geese and whatever. It's
sure.
It's a big feast. And once everyone's had a bit of their fill, and as people are slowing down, eating and drinking, Aeolus kind of begins he's making small talk with you, and he says he kind of takes you all in turn, like glances at you all and says, how long have each of you been here in Briarwood?
Not for me, not super long. I was in the King's Army, and when the drawdown came, I came to Briarwood kind of as a stopping off point while I decided how I was going to get my way home, and the chance for a few coin came up to kill some goblins, and here I sit today with you all, who, a few short weeks ago was, who would have thought?
It is strange the way fortune and fate leads us to different places and different times. What about the rest of you?
Well, I was just on a journey to learn stories about great heroes and become one myself. And I heard this story about Oscar Firebeard, so I came into this land to learn more, and now I'm the hero.
Modest.
Yes, I'm that too.
Say you certainly found yourself in the middle of a tale. That is for certain. That is for sure. I'm most interested in Quill. How long have you been here?
I have lived and walked these paths of these woods as long as I have been alive. I know nothing else.
And you grew up around Oscar's Rest?
I did, yes. I'm taken in by a woodcutter as an orphan.
And how did you come to know of your lineage?
That was a winding tale. I had a piece, like I would take the amulet and like snap it in half, like however it breaks.
Yeah, just sort of like fits, like it sort of slides into, like locks into place, and it's easy enough once you find the mechanism to take it apart again.
So I slide that part out, and this was the only thing I knew of my parents. This was all I had, and as I said, I was just a warden of the woods. I just helped people out, and when we got Oscar's Rest got pulled in by these goblins, and I happened to meet a cider maker, and she happened to have the other half of this amulet, and they clicked together. And then it was further confirmed when we were, was it on Oscar's Rest where the statue was, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When this actually opened the tomb of Oscar Firebeard, and we went down to apparently my family's vaults, and I got to pay homage to my ancestor.
So my takeaway from that is that there's another one out there that perhaps we should be looking at for the seat of power here in Briarwood. He kind of says it with like a
big game heroes like we are.
He says it with a bit of a wry grin on his face, like he's.
I would say that I'm sure she has a damn better eye for business than I do. She runs a tight ship for her cider mill, but the military pieces may be better suited for me.
He says, don't worry. I believe if the king settles on the decision, I think he's going to settle on that. I will be left behind here to get you up to speed, guide you in what you need to know in order to run a barony.
Quill would let out this big, huge, deep sigh, and he's like, "Oh, the saint's blood! Thank you so much."
He says, you wouldn't be the first commoner raised to the nobility in the history of Callandry, and certainly, however, very few of them leap from woodsman to baron.
From half-elf orphaned woodsman to baron.
So the king certainly has a vested interest in seeing all provinces of his kingdom run efficiently and effectively and profitably. Certainly, it would behoove him. It would behoove you. It would behoove Briarwood to have its new leader be instructed and guided for a time. So we would not. I do not believe the king would throw you to the proverbial wolves. And
Wolves I can deal with.
well, yes, until those wolves hire mercenaries, begin
I thought
raiding.
we were talking about literal wolves.
No, when they begin raiding on the edges of your barony, these are things that you need to you would be instructed and guided on how to deal with before you would ever have to do it on your own. And sort of as he finishes saying that, the king stands and sort of a hush comes over the room, and he says, "This afternoon, my advisors and myself met to discuss the state of Briarwood, returning it to Callandry, and installing a leader, a baron here, both worthy of the title and someone who knows this region, knows its people, knows what its people expect and want from a governor. I understand some members of my court disagree, have complicated feelings on the idea of the elevation of a commoner to the ranks of high nobility. I do not share their concerns. My advisor Aeolus has gratefully accepted. Should the individual who has been put forwards accept the honor, Aeolus has gratefully accepted and put forth his own candidacy as to serve as an advisor for a time in Briarwood for whoever assumes the throne. He says, "Friend Quilvalen, stand if you would." And he waits for you to get to your feet, and he says, he steps aside from the throne of Briarwood, and says, "If you would, please step forward and kneel before your barony's throne."
I would take a big deep breath, and I would look over at Boar just to get like a one last piece of you could do it, buddy, and then I'll head up to the throne. And
I shoo you along.
I feel like you give me a death glare at the same time. It's like you look to Boar for reassurance, and me is like,
"Oh, you're outlawed. You're not allowed to come back here."
You're banished.
I can do that now. And I would kneel down where he would instruct.
Sure.
So,
so as you're kneeling before the throne, he stands behind you, and he places a hand on your shoulder and says, If you accept the honor, repeat after me. I hereby accept this seat as regional lord and governor of Briarwood.
I would do a real deep, long pause on that one. Take one deep breath, and then I would repeat. I don't remember what you said.
Yeah, that's fine. I swear to uphold the laws of the kingdom, to fairly and justly oversee the needs and wants of the people. And he goes through this sort of long litany of sort of flowery language of the rights and responsibilities of a baron and blah blah blah, and then he concludes with, so help me all the gods of all the pantheons, whoever I may worship, and amen. And as you repeat, he says rise and take your seat.
I would stand up, I would turn, and I guess I would sit down in this big old throne.
Everyone in the room applauds, and there's some of the nobles that seem far more reluctant than others, and some are like rolling their eyes. But the good news is, they're probably not going to be here in a week. The only one the only people that really matters are the king, the queen, and Aeolus, and the three of them seem to be in accordance with this, in agreement. And the king says, now, my new baron, as your liege lord, I reserve the right to remain in that seat for the rest of the evening. So, if you would, I would like to sit back down next to my wife and finish my meal, if that's okay with you.
I would say back, of course, my lord. May I have one indulgence to say something quickly to the assembled?
Certainly. This is your domain now. Say what you would.
I would bow and I say, I'm grateful for that, sir, but of course, all the lands belong to the kingdom, not to one man. And I would say to all the eye rolling and everything else, I would let them know that while this place is entrusted to me to watch over these woods and these people, know that I will do what is best for the men and women that work and toil through these dirt roads, to grow apples, to fell trees, and to hunt game. These people are the people that I am swearing that I will give them everything and anything that is asked. I would gladly die with my longbow in my hands on the field before I see any harm come to these woods ever again. And, of course, if the need arose, I would come to the kingdom's aid, and this barony would be glad to lend any strength that we could. Though it probably will just be a couple arrows and some apples.
Well said. I would settle for. I would have settled for just not trying to succeed. Not trying to secede from my kingdom and indulge in demon worship. But that was
I'll
very.
Skip the demons, my lord, if that's okay for you.
That was very well said, and I welcome you to the ranks of my court, and I look forward to your family's continued service to the people of Briarwood. And with that, he retakes his his seat, and the evening's festivities take on a much more celebratory tone. With the
when I sit down back at the table next to Ionis, I'll ask him, could I rename this Castle Goodberry? It just seems right.
He says, the castle's yours now. I'll instruct you on the finer points of running a castle, but naming it is up to you.
I feel Castle Goodberry's got to be what we do.
I keep my mouth shut to that one. It's like, I'm in enough trouble with you as it is. I'm not happy locking up in the dungeon tonight. Or I have a feeling that instead of punishing me and sending me to the banishing me from the land, you're actually going to make me train your guards or something.
Oh, you'll work for free. Don't worry about it.
So
work for free. Just as long as you feed me and provide me with some beer, I'll stick around for a few weeks anyway.
So, the business of the night conducted, everyone, kind of indulges a little bit more in drink. Another barrel's brought up. Some of the finer vintages are brought up from the cellar. The king the king promises to restock your cellar. He'll send some from his personal collection to restock your cellar, Quill, and
we're going pure cider-based business.
Briarwood's economy is completely cider-based from this point forward.
It's apple-based and apple-based only.
Hey, you make good cider, cider. We could sell it in the capital. We could, Briarwood's finest.
So, the night, the rest of the night is kind of a bit of a blur of drink and food and celebration, and within a few days, the king, sets out with his court to return to the capital, and it's just your small group in Ionis, and he begins to instruct you on the finer points of actually running a province of the kingdom, and he sets a date in the spring for what amounts to a coming out party, effectively, like where you will be introduced and announced to the people of Briarwood as the new Baron. He begins the business of
terrible.
He begins the business of inviting important regional dignitaries and instructing you on how you would go, who you need to cultivate relationships with among your neighbors beyond the borders of Callandry, and it's actually at so that is where we're going to pick up, is at that party, for the next chapter. So it is now very late fall. So we are heading towards winter. So you have until you have a few months of downtime between now and then. So in that span, is there anything that anyone wants to pursue, whether it be in Greaves Edge? You kind of can't get away not being here for that celebration. So you're gonna have to come back. So if you want to go sort of further afield than Greaves Edge, you certainly can. But with the understanding that you are going to be considered a person of honor at that ceremony. So is there any business that anyone wants to pursue in the over the course of the winter that we can kind of use the downtime rules that D&D has, or if it's something kind of more simplistic, we can kind of just hand wave some stuff as well. But I'm figuring there's going to be really probably about 5 months of total downtime throughout the course of the winter.
If I'm sticking around the castle to train plebs and make them into soldiers, I'm going to get fat and lazy, so I need to do something to keep fit. That's if you, that's if you're going to let me stick around and be useful to you. And
I feel that maybe you're the one that needs to go through training. I think Boar needs to put you through his paces. He's the elder statesman now.
Exactly.
That would be interesting.
Look regal.
What kind of stuff could I learn? Like, I'm always interested in gaining new skills and new techniques.
So you can't train a skill, but you can train in any tool or any language.
I want to learn a language.
So yeah, I mean, there's a library in the castle. Certainly, Ionis is very learned. He can take time to tutor you in a language if you wanted to learn one. So yeah, you tell me what language you want. I mean, you need, according to the game's rules, you need 10 weeks to study it. You have the 10 weeks. So if you want to learn a language, pick one and consider yourself that you've got it.
Yeah, there is the artisan's tools.
Yeah.
There's also things like the gaming sets and musical instruments would also fall into that.
Yes.
So, like, if you're like, oh, I really want to play the bagpipes or whatever, you'd be like, okay, well, that would be where you spend your 10 weeks to get shitty at the bagpipes.
I'm already
Well,
like the
technically, you're being good at the
player
bagpipes,
the
but
world's
they're just,
ever known.
you know.
I mean, in 10 weeks, you'll become shitty. You'll be able to play it. It'll just be shitty.
All bagpipes sound horrible.
Mm-hmm.
They're good for funerals, and that's just about it.
Bagpipes aren't meant to be played indoors.
No, they are not.
I was trying to think what could I do.
You know, you can do things like, yeah, I mean, you could technically there's like one of the downtime activities is pit fighting, but like you're not. I mean, there isn't like a gladiatorial arena. But you know, we could kind of tweak those rules to be your training soldiers, or at least keeping up on your training.
I need a new captain of the guard, and I think that the only person that could be a captain of the guard is someone that could stand up to either Glenn or Boar doing that stuff.
Sure.
So as they train, we could have like little tournaments that they could do. That could be the.
How many weeks exactly do we have?
I'm
One?
like, yeah, I'm
One.
figuring. Yeah, you got like 5 months, so about 20 weeks.
I wouldn't mind learning another language in part of
Yeah, I want to learn 2 languages.
Okay.
Yeah, Giant is fun to yell at people, but it's not been that useful up in this area. So I wouldn't mind finding something that might be,
Yeah. Elven, Dwarven.
Infernal, something that maybe.
Well, I mean, yeah. If maybe inspired by the events that you just went through, Infernal wouldn't be a bad choice, considering the sort of the cultist influence that you just got rid of. That would certainly sort of fit story wise.
Yeah.
I don't know where we're gonna find anyone to be able to teach you that shit.
Well, yeah, I mean that would be that would probably take you.
The cultist books. The cultist books are still there.
Yeah.
How to speak to demons 101.
Yeah, I would think.
And 102.
I would think between maybe Elrich, his arcane background, Ionis with his sort of all breadth of knowledge, and
Jonas can speak abyss, I kill him.
and and the books that are already sort of scattered around that you could piece together enough that I would consider it like you could pick out the finer points of infernal or abyssal. You may not be fluent, but you would at least be able to tell what was being said or be able to pick out the finer points of a piece of writing if you found it in that language, if you wanted to do that. But I think that would take the full 20 weeks just because of having to piece it together, you know what I mean?
Yeah, the difficulty. So
yeah.
Can I go into the character builder and add languages, just do another?
Yeah, I think it's under the if you're on the character like if you're looking at your character sheet, I think you can go in. I'm gonna pull.
Let's see.
I'm gonna pull one of my characters up so I can tell you for sure.
I can do it here. Custom language 1.
Yep. Yeah. There you go.
And then we're gonna do infernal.
And then what are you learning, Eva Frey?
I'm gonna learn Dwarven and Draconic.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
Boar is going to go back actually to the St. Herbert Monastery.
Ah, yes.
Spend some time there. It seems like an appropriate. It's been a while since he was actually, fully training, and he's been through a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to go there, try to do his, spend the winter in basically the monastery training, his martial skills, doing research. He's not going to learn a language.
Well,
he's going to learn.
I have some good news for you. if you spend time at a temple or religious site working with the clergy, there is, you can sort of there, like all, we can handle all the roles part, all the mechanical part of this next week. But there is downtime for spending time at a temple, and like you can kind of either make some new contacts, be asked, be given a specific mission, or receive a blessing from your god. So there are some options available for that as well. So
yeah. I think Boar, the two things he would do is, one, that whole ghost experience he had in the woods, trying to learn about that. And two, he lost 30 years from being scared. He was wondering if there's any healing potions for that, or any healing. So he would try to not healing potions, but any ways to heal back from that, even partially.
Yeah,
so that's what he would be studying that time, and also worshiping with the clergy.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
These things.
The bad news is there probably isn't much that can be done for you at this point.
That's fine. He can still spend his winter
listen,
he can still spend his winter in the monastery, having a nice time praying.
There is
like that.
There is nothing that was it. There's nothing. Your kind of player-based options for reversing what happened to you have kind of the time limits elapsed on them. But there is nothing that the only thing stopping the gods is the gods. So if Saint Herbert decides that you have been deemed worthy of sort of getting those years back, there's nothing saying that can't be done. So and it's certainly dedicating yourself to prayer and worship for a couple of weeks over the winter would.
Couple of weeks, that's 5 months. That's 20.
That would be not a bad way of maybe getting getting to that point. So certainly. So we got some language study. We're going to be training some soldiers and sort of figuring out who is suitable to be the captain of the guard. We've got Boar, who is dedicating himself at the temple. And Quill is obviously now going to be serving his role as Baron and learning how to be the Baron. Mopey, unless you want to pipe in and tell me otherwise, Jen, I'm going to assume Mopey just kind of feels like maybe her work is done. She's going to return back to the the dwarven strongholds, go back to her homeland in the Slate Wall Mountains, and unless you have other things in mind, and then we'll introduce our new cleric and our bard at the party. So we'll pick up there next week, and we'll get the resolution of Boar's dedication at the temple, and Glenn's training of the soldiers then, and unless there's anything else anybody wants to throw in, we'll hit pause till next week.
Alrighty, sounds good.
All right. In that case, have a good night, everybody, and
thank you, Josh.
I'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, sorry. I do want to put out there. I told the guy that was going to run a game for me. I said, listen, I kind of got a good thing going here. Things are kind of rolling. I'm not going to be doing that, so we're going to just roll right into the next part of this. So I got it written. We're ready to go, and like I said, we'll start next week, and we'll move on to what I'm calling Chapter 2 then. Okay.
Awesome.
All
right.
Sounds good.
All right. Good night, everybody.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Night.
Yep.
Thanks, Josh.
Later.
Yep. Bye.
Stay safe out there, okay?
Yep.
Bye.
Stay safe.